Well, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us today. I should explain, in case you're not aware of this, that this is a public session. Indeed, I believe we're being broadcast on BBC Parliament Live as we speak. There will be a transcript made of today's evidence. You will be sent a copy of the uncorrected version, so if there's some factual error that's crept in or there's some mistranscription, you will have the opportunity to correct it. However, as an incentive for a quick reply, we will put the uncorrected transcript on the website, so the sooner you correct it, the better. We have a number of questions to ask you, and perhaps I could start. We've had a certain amount of evidence which suggests that at the time of the bid, football expressed absolutely no serious interest in the possible future use of the Olympic Stadium. But at what point, from your point of view, did Leyton Orient become interested in the post-Games future of the Olympic Stadium? And certainly, did you at any point before 2012 have a realistic expectation that Leyton Orient would move into the stadium after the Games?
Oh, yeah, I have to 100% disagree with your opening comment, my lord. In fact, football was always the prime objective of the Olympic Stadium in its early days. We were involved from 2006, 2007 in discussions with the incumbent powers about a football usage of the Olympic Stadium post-Games. And the plan was quite straightforward. They were offering us, effectively, the lower tier, which is the only fixed part of the development. If you're aware of the construction basis of the stadium, everything above the lower tier was almost like a Meccano set. It was just a temporary building with no facilities but just seats. And the plan was, initial plan, on the very, I think Tessa Jow and Livingston, I think, were the two incumbents at the time, the plan was to remove the Meccano and to leave a 25,000-seater stadium, and we were to be effectively the tenants of that building. But we turned it down because of their decision to maintain the athletics track. We said you can't play football with 50 metres of athletics track betwixt the crowd and the playing surface, as it destroys the atmosphere. And we suggested in 2007 the only solution here before you build it is you must put in retractable seating. It was a decision taken at the time by the powers that be that they couldn't afford the retractable seating. They were already running past the £2 billion initial budget in 2007, approaching the £9+ billion it eventually cost. And they were looking at ways to actually save money and not spend money. And it's turned out to be a very, very expensive, poor decision. But we were always intended at that early stage, as I understand it, to be the football tenant post-Games in a small 25,000-seater stadium, which is obviously in the proximity of Leyton Orient Football Club.
So at what point did you get back into the story?
We came back into the story the moment they said those wonderful words, we're going to put retractable seating in, and we're going to spend a couple of £100 million because we made a mistake. And put one thing in life, when you put your hands up and wipe your mouth and say, I've made a mistake, they've appreciated the only future for the Olympic Stadium has to be a football-orientated future. It's going to do other things, of course. I mean, by way, I'm not sure that you know me so well, but obviously I've been a sports promoter for 40 years and worked everywhere from Madison Square Gardens to the Great Hall of the People in Beijing. So I'm modestly a total expert in this field. If I may be so brief. So we have a situation now where football is the only way forward, and once they said, yes, we're going to put retractable seating in, we were in, but we weren't in to be the sole occupant. We appreciated, with the new structure, 54,000 seats, I'm ambitious, but that's perhaps going to another planet. We're interested in the lower tier, 18,000 seats, as part of but we were interested in a ground share once we knew the experience for the fans was going to be compelling, rather than a distant memory of something going on over there.
So, I mean, the extra conversion costs that we're now talking about, the bulk of that is for the retractable seating.
And extending the roof. Because once you extend the seats, you have to extend the roof.
Okay. So, that expenditure only works in the context of having a much bigger club in terms of attracting as a joint
Oh,
user?
I think commercially, you're absolutely right. I mean, Premiership football is this gigantic business now with billions of pounds pouring in, of course, and it's a wonderful brand of entertainment for people. If we're only looking at the commercial value and not discussing legacy, then I would entirely agree with you that a Premiership club is the only future. My point is, can't we get the best of both worlds?
Lord Wigley.
Very briefly, you mentioned ground share there. Is ground share a practical long-term proposition? I know it's happened short-term, Crystal Palace and Queen's Park Rangers.
In Europe, in respect, so in Europe, it's happening all the time. It's right. You know, there are clubs in France, in Germany, in Italy, where major clubs, which are obviously interested in money, because Premier League football is, whilst a great form of entertainment, is a money business. But they are taking the view that actually there is a benefit, a wider benefit to the community to have a community club alternate weeks. And as I said, my experience in stadiums around the world is usage is absolutely fundamental to getting taxpayers' value for money. So it's no good having a game a fortnight. You actually you have to have something happening every single solitary day and night to recoup your costs and hopefully get back some of the what I call the mistake money. In other words, the money that the government's going to have to spend or get together because of a poor decision made 6 years ago.
Good accountant's analysis.
Well, it was so easy to do, but unfortunately, hindsight has always been our greatest advisor, hasn't it?
Lord Faulkner.
Can I just pick up a couple of things you said, Mr. Hearn, which is very interesting. First of all, on the ground share, are you saying to the committee that if the proposition were put forward that Leyton Orient would share with West Ham at the stadium, that you would welcome that?
Welcome it, my friend. I was excuse me for being familiar. I would welcome it. I would kiss you, right? And I don't normally kiss men. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because this is not, and I'm not sure how much you're up to speed on this. This is not a done deal. West Ham have been given agreement to proceed, but I have a challenge in the courts for judicial review because we are questioning the whole basis of the bidding process with the LLDC. I also have an outstanding litigation with the Premier League because we think West Ham even moving is a breach of Premier League rules. So there are two sides of my argument because we are not interested in a ground share. We are desperate to survive. And the only way we believe we will survive is by a ground share.
That's very clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And can I just also pick up something else you said? When you said at the outset, Leyton Orient were perceived as the front runner,
yes,
as the eventual. I haven't seen anything in writing that has said that, other than an interview I think you gave to the BBC.
No, I think you'll find there's lots of correspondence in 2006 and 2007.
I think the committee would be quite interested to see that.
Well, I'm sure we can find that for you,
Okay,
sir.
thank you.
Are you saying you were led on?
We were, I think, well, we're in an open forum. I think lots of people have been led on in this process. I think Tottenham Hotspur were led on to believe they had a chance of either them or West Ham. A market was created, whereas, of course, Tottenham Hotspur had no chance whatsoever, which is why we were quite supportive of Tottenham, because we knew they couldn't get in. Complete breach of Premier League rules. Moving into the same borough as an established Premier League club, they had no chance. We are the people that we make people look good. We are an out-and-out community club that doesn't care about money, that's not interested in making money, that cares about carrying on the work we do. So we actually look good by being involved. Our community scheme is acknowledged throughout the whole country as one of the best in the, well, I think you've probably seen evidence of it. So, yeah, we're not being used, but we're quite, I feel that the whole process was a done deal before we started, to be perfectly honest with you.
Well, that leads on nicely to Lord Addington.
Right, well, basically the question I've been asked to ask you is what was your assessment of the decision-making process? And what do you believe the decision-making process, did you think it took paid adequate attention to those concerns in the process?
Well, obviously, I mean, I appreciate I'm totally biased, but I have to say the decision-making process was poor from day one. I mean, we've ended up in a situation where we've gifted a £500 million of taxpayers' money to a Premier League club that's got a turnover of over £100 million. I mean, it's a wonderful gift. If I was an Arsenal fan, I think, why did I bother to build my own stadium and pay for it? But notwithstanding, I find myself a bit contradictory because on the one side, as a taxpayer, I mean, the negotiation strength of the LLDC was appalling. Appalling. Do you know how much this is valued? I mean, I'm sure Mr. Brady will give evidence later and may disagree with this. In my view, commercially, the occupation of this stadium will increase West Ham's value by around £100 million. And yet they're paying £2 million a year rent before the stadium is responsible for policing, stewarding, etc., etc. If you add up those costs, it's rent-free. They're paying £15 million, I think, contribution to the reorganisation costs, but being allowed to sell and develop Upton Park. Now, this is state sponsorship beyond my wildest dreams. And I, in a way, say good luck to West Ham because they're in a position as a commercial enterprise to do the best deal for themselves. What I want to understand, in this age of generosity, and obviously we're not in a recession or there's no problems money-wise in the world, I wonder why Little Leyton Orient, 750 yards from the entrance to the Olympic Park, has been totally overlooked. It staggers me. And I don't understand them, which is why we're going to pursue every avenue because we want to survive. So the process, to answer a long-winded question, is I thought they were nice people. I think they had a certain amount of skill. In a commercial world, I don't think I'd let them run a newsagent.
Right, well, just to follow on from there, because many of the people who actually aren't football fans like myself going through assumed that it would be something that actually would have a benefit for sports outside, for instance, athletics, etc.
Yeah.
Rugby union it would be a good size for as well, and indeed rugby league. Do you actually think that there was any way they could have structured in something that would have guaranteed that sort of usage possibly with yourself?
So easy as to be unbelievable. This is a multi-use stadium, I quite agree with you. It's not just a football stadium, but football will be the anchor tenancy. West Ham will give it the profile as a Premier League club being televised around the world. If we were lucky enough to share on dates that we would work round, which we said to the LLDC, if we can't play weekend because you've got something happening, a rugby match, we're quite happy to play Thursdays. The Football League will give us permission. So we appreciate that we are the secondary tenant because we're not initially paying the same amount of rent or the proposal as West Ham. We're a community club, we don't have their £100 million of income. The other, it's all an organisation. This business is about logistics. It's about looking at 365 days on a calendar, making sure that you've got your fundamentals in place, i.e. your Premier League fixtures, and then going out and doing exactly what you said. This is an iconic building. The area is going to be the greatest attraction for people in London, bar none, because we had celebrated the greatest sporting event in my lifetime, and we have to build on that. You will find, but you won't be getting what I think Mr. Johnson has been saying, rock concerts to the world. This doesn't exist in the real world. Rock concerts and the like would much rather go to the O2, where you're indoors, where you're paying £60,000 rent, and you've got no problems with the weather. There's very few bands in the world that will sell out a 54,000-seater stadium, and it's certainly not a regular occurrence. What is regular are the one-off events, American football coming in, perhaps some cricket because there's a strong cricket influence, you can easily put that down, certainly rugby league, certainly rugby union. And you look at the calendar and you fill your calendar. Occupancy, and on the days you don't fill your calendar, it's stadium tours or anything you can do to drive money in to pay your fixed costs. It's a brutally hard business, but you need someone at the top of it that is actually driving business every day, and creation of new events like that is absolutely perfect. But don't get confused, there won't be a huge number of them. When it actually gets down, if you can hit 30 days a year of specialised events with the set-up times and the breakdown times, you've done well.
Baroness Billingham.
Yes, when all the preliminary discussions were going on, life looked fairly rosy as far as the economic situation was concerned. Subsequently, of course, we've had a nightmare scenario. Now, I have to say to you that your line, which you are so determined to pursue, seems to me to be something that ought to be up for review. I don't understand why you're so determined that you can't view football across an athletics track. I viewed football all over Europe and in other parts of the world which does just that. And I'm wondering why you're so determined that that should not happen. If you were able to compromise, then the saving to the taxpayer and perhaps the release of funds to other sport, not as wealthy or as popular as yours, and may I remind you, we are told that we had the task of the legacy of producing a new sporting nation Now, you're taking a very large portion of that cake.
Before you kill me, I'm the largest sports promoter in the world. I promote 11 different sports to a global audience of billions of people every day of my life. I care very passionately about sport. I care very passionately about football, and there are ways, and I think the fact that the evidence is that everyone agrees with me that you can't have, I'm sorry, you are very much in the minority.
I'm asking the question.
The question is, you can't play football with atmosphere, with 50 metres of athletics track between the front row of the seats and the start of the playing surface. They do it in Europe, it's an abysmal failure. The whole ethos of how football has been built into the national game has been built around accessibility, at all ages, to all sexes, to all creeds, and the responsibility of people to put on an entertaining show which will provide atmosphere. The fact is that not just me, obviously West Hyam, I think now even the LLDC have finally agreed that this was a colossal mistake, and it wasn't a question of compromise. I'm not good at compromise. I'm good at getting things right. That's what I try to do. I don't live a world of compromise. Compromise to me is much more, it's completely alien thought. I want things right. And unfortunately, we, the country, messed up the building of the Olympic Stadium, and we had to put it right. And it costs money. When I lose money on events, I have to put things right. It costs me money. I try not to make the same mistake twice, and they are now going to create the most magnificent stadium that will be a multi-use stadium for everything. And football will be the anchor tenant. Because without football, there isn't going to be enough occupation. You're up against Wembley, who are starving at the moment, desperate for events. You're up against the O2, that will cut prices to get you in. And by the way, they're just on the doorstep. So what price striking a good commercial deal for the Olympic Stadium? It's got to be right. What you have is this wonderful, iconic building and these brilliant memories of what was a fabulous games. That's what you're building on. That's why that whole area is going to be such a vibrant area for London. That's why we're all excited, because we come from the East End of London, which probably hasn't had any money spent on it since the Great War. Suddenly, we've got these magnificent facilities and we want to be part of it. So I disagree with you. I'm afraid when you make mistakes in life, you have to bite the bullet.
Lord Wigley.
Isn't atmosphere in a football game a function of more than one thing? Proximity is one, the other is the size of the crowd.
Correct.
The old Wembley Stadium used to get a tremendous atmosphere, although there was a distance from the playing field. So is the problem in the context of Leyton Orient, the size of the crowds might be so small that in...
I think that's a very good point. I mean, we looked at this because obviously our average crowd is about 5,000 people, just under. It's not this year. We've given away we've created a new 2,000 season ticket holders this year by giving free season ticket holders to under 18s in London. So we've got an extra 2,000. Hopefully our crowd's going up, and it's been terrific. We know this is a challenge. It's a great challenge.
But you're an ambitious club.
Yes.
And you're going to get to the Premiership.
No, I hope we do.
No, is that it right?
I'm ambitious. I'm understanding also. As a club, we live in the real world. I don't allow any of my companies to borrow money. I have no debt in any of my companies. We are one of the few debt-free football clubs. We run a proper business.
Swansea City, who are in the fourth.
They've done very well, and Hugh's run a wonderful business there. I'd love to think we could, but I like to live in the real world as well. I want to get in the championships. I want to go up one division at least. Yeah. That will allow me to fill the 18,000 lower bowl.
The point I wanted to get at was if you did get up there to the Premiership or to the Championship and knocking on the door, would it be as easy for you to be ground sharing in those circumstances?
Yes. Well, I don't see any reason, but I think people have got to live in the real world. As we know, there's an economic recession now. We have to make the best of our facility. The stadium's job is to be busy all the time. They've got to be looking for things to be in there, and we'd be delighted to be part of it. But I have to say one thing is, and I think this is a really relevant fact, is please understand that we are running a community football club here. We do have restrictions. We live within our own budgets. But on the other side, should we be fortunate enough, either by this review or by the challenges that we're mounting, to be ground share, we've already given an undertaking to the LLDC. If in the future we did become successful and we ever sold our shares in Leyton Orient Football Club, the entire profit of that proceeds would go back to the LLDC. We're not in this to make money. That's very fundamentally different. We are a community club. We have the biggest community scheme probably in the country, And we demand the right to be treated with respect. And so far, quite frankly, under this process, we haven't had it.
Lord Faulkner.
Mr. Hearn, when the leader of Waltham Forest Council gave evidence to this committee, he said there's been no effort made by the Olympic authorities to see what effect turning that stadium, one we're talking about, into a football venue would have on the Orient. That is the key point. Can I ask you, have you made that sort of assessment, and can you share that with the committee?
So I would love to. This is a point that's not just relevant with local council, but it's very relevant with the Premier League case. Under the Premier League rules, they say, I think Rule 3.1, that they will not sanction a move of one club closer to another club if it has an adverse effect on the resident club. Our point with the Premier League is they have made no inquiry as to what potential effect it would have. We, on the other hand, and I hate spending money because I run a proper little business, spent £30,000 with an economic consultancy to produce a report trying to set out the effects of West Ham moving into the Olympic Stadium and us staying where we are. This report is the most damning evidence that has not been taken into account by anyone. But what it says is the season ticket holders that we lose automatically every year, people die, unfortunately, people leave, and this is small numbers, but it adds up. We lose 400 or 500 season ticket holders a year, and every year, what do you know, we get 400 or 500 new ones, so we pretty well stay the same. Their report is that once West Ham are in, giving away, as they've already publicised, 100,000 free tickets, no youngster in our catchment area with the brand value of the Premier League will consider going to Leyton Orient because we're a Division 1 club. The effect of this is to condemn Leyton Orient over a 5-year period, not necessarily to death, but certainly to dropping down the leagues because we operate within a 60%, as you know, revenue rule, and as our revenue drops, so our availability to spend money on our squad drops. This is the kiss of death. Why do you think me, of all the... I'm one of the most sensible people you're ever going to meet. Do you think I spend £1 million on lawyers? Why do I spend £1 million? I hate lawyers. Why do I give them £1 million of my money to fight my case when I could do something better with it? Because I'm fighting for survival. And the point is being ignored. And it keeps coming down back and driving me crazy in the middle of the night. What harm does it do, Leyton Orient being in the Olympic Stadium? Surely the benefits of the community, the succession of Leyton Orient for fans year after year, the generations going forward, no one has said to me, all I'm hearing is West Ham don't want a ground share with Leyton Orient. That, my friends, should be academic because when we signed up to the process of the bidding process to start with, including that process, we all accepted the principle of matching, i.e. ground share. And I cannot come up with one reason, Lord Chairman, what harm we do. I can even make a case to say the Olympic Stadium itself could make a profit out of us being there, even at our current level. But the additional benefits to the community in terms of businesses, pubs, taxis, of having more activity within the Olympic Park on days that suit. The Chief Executive of the Olympic Park says this is where we're going to make our money and this is where Leyton Orient's going to play. To my mind, this is totally unfathomable. I am completely bemused because it's a no-brainer.
Can I just ask you, what is your... I think I know the answer, but I'd like you to say it. Your dream scenario is to come to an agreement where Leyton Orient and West Ham United share the Olympic Stadium, but at the same time you comply with the other requirements for the stadium to be made available for athletics and other major events.
We would sit down every year and literally look at the calendar and say what dates are left for us.
So you would keep it. You would keep the athletics track in place, but you'd cover it over.
Well, it's going to be covered over anyway. That decision's already been made, isn't it?
Cover over for football and then taken back for the athletics.
And we play the same time as West Ham.
So it would remain as a multi-purpose stadium used by 2 football clubs.
Totally. And we have offered £500,000 a year rental while we're in Division 1, £1 million when we're in the Championships, and £5 million if we ever make the Premiership. Your point, sir. Another Swansea. West Ham are currently paying 2. So we're offering 5 if we're in the Premiership. But that's academic because we're not in the Premiership. We've also said to them, all the catering and everything, hospitality is yours, Plus, we've produced 2 reports from independent consultants which say if Leyton Orient was involved in the stadium, the naming rights would improve by between $500,000 and $1.5 million a year, because most major corporations like to tick community boxes. With all respect to West Ham, they have community, an aspect to them, but they are a Premier League money machine. That's what Premier League football is. They'll have their community, nowhere near as much as us, but they'll do something. But they're fundamentally living off £100 million of Premiership TV money. Good luck to them. I wish it was me, but it's not. But we have given them a structure of a deal where we will say we will sell our Brisbane Road, we will put all the money into the club, we will try and get to the next level in the Championship, and hopefully more. The investment opportunities, don't forget, this is a money business. The investment opportunities for a club resident in the Olympic Stadium are vast. There are Chinese, Asians, Middle East people from America that look at that stadium and they start dribbling because it's such a beautiful building and it's going to be a home of a wonderful football club, West Ham United. The opportunity for huge profit making does exist, which is why we put our clause in that if we ever sell, you have all the money. We're not interested in the money. We don't want to take anything out of the development of Brisbane Road. We want it to be totally transparent. And we want to run a proper business for the community as we've been running for 130 years, instead of being slipped out and being bashed up, bullied, terrorised and basically made to feel as if we are of no significance, because the one word that we've not discussed so far is legacy. What is the legacy of the Olympic Games? Is it to state subsidise a huge commercial enterprise? As a taxpayer, I don't like it. As a West Ham director, I'd love it to death. Is it to look after a little football club like Leyton Orient that actually achieves the dreams of youngsters, that goes out into the community, reaches 100,000 kids in our area? Is that what we're supposed to be doing? Is that legacy, or is legacy just a word and is money the only thing that matters? In my relationship with the LLDC, and I have to say with Mr. Johnson, legacy has not featured. Money has featured. The cost of doing this, the cost of supplying that. These costs were incurred because of bad administration decisions, not by me. You listen to me, you'd have saved yourself a couple of £100 million. But the powers decided not to.
Baroness King.
Could sell out the Olympic Stadium with a one-man gig. This is brilliant, really enjoying it. But I wondered, you're the most sensible man we're ever going to meet. Give us some sensible reasons, even if you don't agree with them, of why the others don't want you there. Not just West Ham doesn't want to share, but there must be some, even if you don't
I would
agree
like
with
to see claret and blue seats in the stadium. I would like to see my iconic Bobby Moore, Martin Peters, Jeff Hurst. I'd like to see the bars with the names up. I'd like it to be West Ham's ground. We stopped the original deal by judicial review where they were going to actually own the ground. Thank God we stopped that. But now the rental deal is a terrific deal for West Ham, which we all know that. But if I was West Ham, of course, I want to go out. Perhaps I want to go to Asia. I know, listen, it's not for me to say, perhaps I want to go and sell the club in 5 years' time. Perhaps I want to get some investment in the club. And I want my shareholders or my potential investors to look at this iconic stadium and say, that's ours. Not seeing a little bit of Leyton Orient signage here and there, and every other week a team in red runs out instead of claret and blue. I can understand that you want your own ground that you own exclusively yourself. I understand that. But you know what? They're getting such a brilliant deal. God, I wish I was on the negotiation panel for that deal. It would have been a different story. But that's taxpayers' problem. That's over. That's done. Good luck to West Ham. They're lovely. They're our neighbours. But neighbours works both ways. What about us? Just going to be a great success and churn another 100 million quid? And we're just going to go, be the forgotten tribe of the East End? I don't think we'll die quietly. So we have our court cases, we have our moment, we reserve our judgment if we lose that to continue. Because I don't know anything other than fighting for something which is, in my view, the real legacy of the Olympics.
Lord Sternham.
I've got a general question, but I want to follow it up with something specific. How can any ongoing concerns that you have be addressed, given that the decision's been made for West Ham to occupy the stadium? And what future measures do you wish to see taken to protect the interests of Leyton Orient? But can I just elaborate and ask you what the view of your fans is to be, to your suggestion that you should be absorbed into a stadium run by West Ham?
Well, the stadium's not going to be run by West Ham, number one. It's going to be run by the legacy company or the development
company. That's how the fans will see it, though.
Well, let me come back on the fans. The second thing is, as I said, it's not a done deal. I have to keep putting this across to you. There's a judicial review in the High Court on this. There's a claim against the Premier League, so it's all subject to. Now, of course, we all know eventually it's going to be a done deal, so let me accept that. The fans, I think our fans, we've had meetings with supporters clubs, with the fanzines, and quite frankly, a lot of them would rather stay in Brisbane Road. They were there with their dad, their granddad, and their great-granddad. This is what happens in small clubs. And it is an exercise of probably 50% of them saying, the future for us is the Olympic Stadium. Without it, we die. And other people are quite prepared to die and hold the fort down until the last Indian has finished off hacking them up to pieces. So there isn't I'm not going to tell you there's a unanimous view of our supporters, our hardcore supporters. But our responsibility, our fiduciary duty is to look to the club, the name, to look to the future, to build. I think every club, if you talk about Swansea, it wasn't so many years ago, Swansea were in our division, where they were attracting 3,000 or 4,000 people at most. But they had a dream. And you know, the Olympics is about a dream, wasn't it? Wasn't it a dream for the athletes? So why should that dream stop after 3 weeks? Or 4 weeks or 5 weeks? The Paralympics and the athletes had their dream. Football fans, owners have got their dreams as well. And this is on our patch. My front door is 750 yards from the Olympic Stadium. So we have to convince all of the fans. We're halfway there. But when you sit down with them, as we do, and explain, look, this is the alternative. On number one, within 5 years, with the fall-off, according to this a totally independent report, we will be in the conference at best, because we won't have any money. We can't spend more than 60% of our revenue. They are the Football League rules. Or we could have a little gamble. And we've said that we will go out and we will give every kid in London a free season ticket holder, under 18. Give it to them free. Every member of the armed forces, we will give a free season ticket. Every student, we will give a free season ticket. Because it doesn't matter. We're not in it for the money.
No, but can I just put a point to you that you have argued that you're worried that those season tickets, those 500 season tickets, won't be replaced. But if your fans are forced to go into a stadium that's not, one of your single selling points, presumably, is the fact that they go to the familiar ground and they look up the road and they see rich West Ham and they're fighting for their club and that's why they go. But if they turn up to the stadium, which is... Well,
it's a lovely thought, but I'm afraid you're very old school. I'm afraid, like me, we have the wrong colour here to understand what young people are like, aren't we? Young people today want success.
Well,
they want dreams.
That was the point I'm making. Won't they actually sign up for West Ham?
I think you have to take it into football context. The Premiership brand is such a strong brand. It is everywhere. Pick up your newspaper, listen to your radio, turn on your TV. It's all Premier League brands. So kids at school deciding to go along and support their first club, this is what we're losing out on. They will turn to a Premier League club every day of the week instead of saying, oh, I think I'll fight my corner at Leyton Orient. It doesn't work like that anymore. Kids today are influenced by the media much more than that. So your hardcore fans, they may stay, but as we've already proved, each year 400 or 500 of those hardcore fans disappear. They're replaced by 400 or 500 kids from the area that want to go and watch their local football club. If you have a Premier League club on your doorstep offering free tickets, do you honestly think they're going to come to Leyton Orient? What, do they have a death wish or something?
No, well, I'm making that point. I mean, I'm saying that you're going to speed the process up.
We're going to offer...
Orient if you go into the West Ham Stadium.
Again, don't underestimate. I mean, as I say, I'm in the event business. The iconic nature of that stadium sells tickets to everyone, irrespective of whether they're even a fan. This is going to be a centrepiece. Once this is open, 2016, whatever, this is a major international centrepiece that people in the East End are proud of, that we've waited generations for. And it won't happen again in our lifetime. You could stage you and I arm wrestling there. People would come to watch because it's the Olympic Stadium. Do you get my dressing? You get my feeling? So whereas I'm a 5,000 crowd, I will guarantee you I will definitely be minimum 10,000 crowd, simply because you imagine the away supporters. What away supporters not going to say, looking at the fixtures, oh, where shall I go? You know, Milton Keynes? No, I don't fancy Milton Keynes. Shrewsbury? It's a long way away. Olympic Stadium? Are you joking? This is going to be a community focal point, and we have an opportunity to make it a community focal point, and we add an enormous amount to that mix. It's not just about old school thinking, it's about new age promoting.
Okay, I think we've got the point. Thank you very much indeed for the evidence. You've undertaken to dig out some of that correspondence from the, in the sort of early days.
And would you like the copy of the report that we did on the effect of the stage as well?
That would be very useful. Thank you very much.
Great pleasure. And thank you for putting up with me. I do appreciate it. Thank you. You've been a very good crowd.